Welcome to Cut the BS with Holly and Rachel.
We are here to help you ditch the overwhelm, stop second guessing, and reconnect with what truly fuels your body, your mind, and your life.
No fluff, no filters, just real talk that helps you feel strong, aligned, and unstoppable. Whether you're on a walk, commuting, or sipping your favorite matcha, this is your space. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of Cut the BS with Holly and Rachel. Obviously, if you don't know who we are by now, it's literally in our title. My name is Rachel. Say it with me now, a.k.a.
Ray.
Ray, a.k.a.
Bon.
And with me is the one and only, the magnificent
Holly, a.k.a. Holly.
The one and only.
The one and only.
She is the one and only. I don't know why sometimes I break into song.
It's a girl thing, I think, because
when trying to emphasize something, I think it's just, this is girlhood, you know?
Yeah.
So on today's episode of Cut the BS with yours truly, we're going to talk about sustainability. So when we think about sustainability, it's a very broad term, right? Sustainability, the ability to sustain, not the Webster Dictionary. And so because it's such a broad term, obviously, you know, as girlies, we're health and wellness girlies. We love to be healthy. We love to be well. It's what we do for our job. It's what we do in our lives. It's literally a part of who we are. And so with that, when we're talking about sustainability today, we're really going to be talking about sustainability in the health and wellness world. So what you're eating, your routine. We're really going to lean more into the nutrition side of it because we see a lot of unsustainable things happening in this space. And Holly, I don't know about you, but I see it every single day. People are coming up to me saying, "Oh, I'm trying to lose weight. I don't eat carbs anymore." Or they're saying, "Oh, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm eating according to my blood type," which is a new one. There are just all of these approaches that people are taking that are supposed to get them to their goal, but again, they're not sustainable. And so we're just really going to dive into what's sustainable, what isn't, and how do you know if something's sustainable or not?
Yeah, I think that's the key is like knowing before you start, having a set of questions you can process through, think through of, you know, where do I see this going? How do I see myself using this in the long term? And using that approach to whether you think something should be started at all.
Right. So before even starting something new, we love new things. We love new starts. I think they're great, but really kind of, diving in through, is this going to work? Like, is this going to be realistic? Is it really attainable for me? Can I do it for the rest of my life? Things like that. And with these unsustainable things that we have seen in our spaces, I've literally seen a variety of unsustainable practices all the time, like almost every day, like I said. And so what do you feel makes something unsustainable, or why do people's plans sometimes fail, when they're trying to reach a goal? And let's just be honest, like most of the time people are wanting to lose weight. It's something that in America collectively, like a lot of people struggle with. So why do you feel like most of people's plans fail?
I would say like the underlying, or I guess like the umbrella, if we want to say, is the all or nothing of diets and lifestyle changes that people are making. It's like you're 100% in on no carbs or only doing keto or whatever it is. And so you're too all in on one thing or a few things instead of focusing on a lot of different areas, if that makes sense. So, like making small changes in different areas, you're making one really big, massive change that changes your whole approach. And I think that's why I see a lot of people not being successful with these diets is because it's way too big of a change instead of making a small change.
Yeah. And I think, again, we've said this before on different episodes referring to different things, but I think it's very applicable here that we live in an instant culture and we want things right
Mhm.
now. Let's just say we're not patient. And I can attest as well. I am not I am not always the most patient person. It's something I'm really working on. Even in my own journey of trying to continue to become a healthier version of myself. But because we live in that instant culture, that's why we do that all or nothing. That's why we make such a drastic change because we think it's going to get us to where we want to be quicker.
Right.
And while I will say that some of these approaches will yield results, that's where that key word of what we're talking about today, sustainability. Like you can't do these things
Right.
forever. I think that's probably if you had to ask yourself one question of, is this sustainable? Is it not? Can you do it forever? And if you can't, then it's not sustainable.
Mhm.
Like that's a very, I feel, black and white approach to seeing if something's going to work, if it's sustainable, if it isn't. Um, you know, like you said, the cutting out all carbs, people do that, and they still do it today, even though there are so many pieces of education and experts talking about how that's not realistic. People are still cutting out the carbs. And that's why people are still using this approach is because it does yield results. Like you are going to drop weight if you cut out
Mhm.
carbs. But again, like you can't cut out carbs forever. Carbs are your body's desired fuel source. And so it might work for a little bit, but it's not going to work forever.
Yeah.
And so being patient, back to the patience, is
For
important.
sure. I think that, yeah, that brings up a good point. I think it's like the all or nothing of it. And then there's also the fact that when you go with this all or nothing approach, it does yield those instant results. And so if if that's what you're looking for is quick weight loss, then these all or nothing approaches tend to give you that. I also think something is that everything has to have a label to it. We have to title it as something. So these diets give people that, even outside of diets, like 75 hard. Those are sometimes can be really sustainable habits when we, maybe scale it back a little bit. But when we put it in the
Mhm.
75 hard of it all, it has a title, and it's very all or nothing as well. So I think a lot of people seek out being able to say, this is what I'm doing with with a title to it instead of just these are the lifestyle changes I'm making. Like if you were to make those same changes that is
Yeah,
included in the 75 hard and scale it back to your own life, you would see massive success over years. But people want to do it in those
yeah.
75 days and then crash and burn. But that's a whole other podcast.
Other crash and burn. Right, right, right. And I think too, again, it all kind of goes back to the all or nothing. And that is something that you have to think all or nothing is the yes, no, the black and white, it's an easy like choice for our brains versus I'm gonna incorporate this small thing. If I get off track, I just need to steer myself back on track.
Mhm.
Like that's a little bit more of I almost want to say more work. Because you're constantly having to make sure that you're, staying on track. And if you get off track, you have to work through giving yourself grace, getting yourself back on track. It's something small, so it doesn't feel like it's doing as much as you might want it to. Um, but, again, like these all or nothing are really ignoring the personal aspects about yourself. So not everyone has the same life, not everyone has the same schedule, not everyone has the same, preferences, constraints. And so it's not personalizing it to the person, which I think is also important because might work for me might not work for you because, we have different priorities, different needs.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's another reason that these all or nothing approaches really kind of lead to failure in the end.
Yeah, they don't teach you how to work around your life and your schedule and, your differences. It just teaches you do this, and if you're not
Mhm.
doing this, you're basically wrong. uh,
Yeah,
you're a
you're a failure.
failure, and that's not a motivating mindset to have either. On top of it not being practical, it's
Right.
not motivating to think, "Oh, well, I 1 carb today and, now I failed my no carb diet." Like, what? That just doesn't
No carb diet is
click.
crazy.
Yeah.
And I'll give a side note to the no carbs. Um, the side note to the no carbs is that people will say that they've cut carbs, but they're still eating fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. Or
And I'm like,
no
well,
sugar, but which is fine, limiting your sugars. But do we know that it all goes down
mhm,
the same?
right. Or that you just had a potato, so you actually just had sugar because it's being converted. Um, anyways, so I think people's ideas are a little bit skewed as well. I think what most people mean is that they're cutting refined
Yeah.
carbs. So they're cutting rice, they're cutting bread. Those are the simpler carbs. The body breaks those down easier.
When people are, we talked about questions to ask. Is this something you can maintain forever? Which also a caveat to that is, do you want to maintain it forever? Just because you can doesn't mean you want to. Like what events in life
Right.
might come up that
Hmm.
might limit this? But also what like as far as like short term versus long term, what are things that you look for that like questions kind of in that realm that people can ask themselves when they're choosing a lifestyle change to make?
Yeah. Well, obviously we already mentioned like, can we do this forever? But really even thinking maybe not even forever, like, can you do this for 6 months? A lot of people do keto diet for 6 months and are successful in losing however much weight or whatever it is. Um, so the short term aspects of it, which you kind of already mentioned, but also like, can I do this for 2 years? Um, not even thinking of it lifelong, which I think in the end, like thinking of it lifelong works too. But can I do this in 6 months? Can I do that? Can I do this for 2 years? What quality of life will I have if I do this for 6 months? If I do this for 2 years? Um, and then, like I mentioned, we all have our very individual lives, responsibilities, schedules, things that we have to do or that maybe we need to alter for our daily lives. So does what we're wanting to do, right? Does it fit with your current responsibilities, like your current schedule? Like, does it fit
Yeah.
you specifically? Um, And then another thing is when you're like, obviously when you're trying to figure out a plan of action to take, again, we mentioned that most of the time it's people losing weight. Um, are we, are we treating the root cause or are we just treating the symptoms? So most of the time people who want to lose weight, they have bad habits when it comes to the way they fuel their body, or they have bad habits because they don't move a lot. And again, our bodies are designed to move. Our bodies function the best when we nourish it with vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, all of those things. So when we're doing, one of these diets, is it just going to get me to lose weight? Or is it gonna fix the bad habits that I've created of how I fuel my body or how I move my body?
Mhm.
And I think, like, when we think about things like the keto diet or when we think about things, like any kind of diet where you're cutting out something entirely or and when you're doing these fad things, a lot of times it's just to get results. Like, I don't
Mhm.
care, about my energy levels. I don't care about how I feel. Like, I just wanna look like
Yeah.
this. Um, I think that's a lot of times what people want, and I think they're doing themselves a disservice because while we all are a bit vain and we care about how we look to a certain extent, like, the internal is gonna determine how long you live and how well you
Mhm.
live, you know? So I just think that's something to take into consideration and maybe self-evaluate a little on what your motives are and things like that.
I agree, and I think something with that is how often I hear, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna do keto to get me started, and then I'll take the, realistic approach." Well, why not
Yeah.
just start with the realistic approach? You're literally admitting this is not a long-term solution. You're gonna see really quick results, and then you're gonna go to this realistic solution, and you're gonna gain weight because you're now eating where you probably closer to where you need to be eating, and you're not cutting out as much. And then you're gonna feel like, well, the realistic approach just doesn't work. And then in a year, you're gonna go back to keto. So what if we just started with the realistic approach and stall it out in the long term? And in a year from then, you could still be on this realistic lifestyle change.
Oh, I agree. And that is kind of the cycle that I see a lot as well, like with people that um, are saying that they don't do any carbs, which in fact they usually do because they're eating vegetables or they're eating fruit.
So before we jump into talking about the sustainable approach and realistic ways, I kind of want to go back to, asking yourself, where does this fit into my life long term? Does this fit into my schedule? Something I think about as I've gotten older and like with my nieces, for example, the way that I talk about food and the way that I am around food, is that the message that I want to send to a younger girl? The answer for me is I want them to know that their Aunt Holly is fit and she cares about herself and she cares about her health. And I am going to pour into being as healthy as I possibly can. And for me, that is going to include eating cookies and eating cake and eating chips and the vegetables and the fruits, and it can all coexist together. So I think that's also maybe another powerful question
Yeah.
that people can ask themselves is, what message am I sending to a younger girl that I really care about? Do I want her to, follow my footsteps, or am I like, you don't need to do this? Well, how can you do it for yourself while telling your daughter, your niece, your friend, whoever, that they don't need to be doing it?
Right. And it's like a shame
Mhm.
aspect too. Like we're teaching, young women to feel shame for, enjoying things in moderation. And like, I just feel that it honestly sets the stage for an eating disorder, or it sets the stage for something that I'm not qualified to even like give someone advice on. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it's a really dangerous thing to promote. And at the end of the day, like, people are gonna take information, especially young impressionable girls, like, they're gonna take the information and they're gonna really hold on to it for a long time and even, apply it to their own lives. So what we're telling them, the messages we're sending is something to consider.
Yeah. All right, so jumping into, what to do instead of fad diets. What would you say, Rachel, are like some small gradual changes that people can make to nutrition or just lifestyle, however you want to answer, instead of hopping into these fad diets?
For sure. I think the number one thing that I would say before someone wants to jump into a fad diet is to evaluate what their food looks like right now. Like, what do your habits look like right now? Are you eating breakfast? Are you eating lunch? Are you eating dinner? Are you snacking a lot? What do your meals look like? Again, for those of you that have questions on specific nutrition guidelines, we have 3 whole episodes, talking about what proteins are, carbs, fats, their purpose, their role, what your plate should look like. I think someone should first and foremost, really look at what their habits are, what's ideal that they're doing that is really, pouring into them in a positive way, but then maybe what are some other things that are maybe negatively
Mhm.
affecting the issues that they're having, whether it be their inability to lose weight, their inability to feel energized, whatever it is. I think that should be number one. Let's evaluate first, see what's going on. Maybe talk to someone. get a coach, do a consultation,
Mhm.
like figure out what the issue is. Um, and then work on, we talked about the small changes, incorporating small things. I actually was just saying this yesterday to a client that isn't a full-time client yet, but we were consulting. I was like, something that I tell all my clients is, you can have a goal of losing 100 pounds. And maybe that's a great goal to have, and maybe you need to do that, like for your health. But setting that as your main goal of I need to lose 100 pounds is really big. It can be really overwhelming, and it
Mhm.
can feel like you're never going to get
Yeah.
there. So instead, how do we approach that? Maybe our goal is let's lose 5 pounds first, right? How are we going to do that? We're going to stop eating a lot of processed stuff. We're going to eat more whole foods. We're going to build out our plate according to Cut the BS with Holly and Rachel's podcast, their 3-episode series. We're going to watch it, take notes, and apply it. And then once we get to that 5-pound mark, like, okay, like we've accomplished
Mhm.
something. That's not like it's nice to accomplish things. We get the little dopamine hit because we've accomplished something, we've
Exactly.
done something. And then we continue to progress forward. That's how I would have someone approach it. Again, there's going to be a lot of more specifics depending on who the person is, what the issue is, how do we solve the issue instead of band-aid it with a fad diet.
Yeah.
Um, but as a general description, that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, and I think that, like, dare I say that's realistic, like, let's evaluate where we're at, and from there, instead of making a whole 180, what if we just make 2 changes at a time? Something if you're not eating breakfast, can
Yeah.
we eat a breakfast that is made at home? Can we start with that? Can we start with getting out in
Yeah.
the middle of our workday to get some steps? Small things for sure. And we've talked about it in our nutrition episodes. Add and not take away, In the beginning stages, you're going to feel like absolute crap if all you're doing is taking everything away. Not crap physically necessarily, but mentally, you're going to feel deprived. You're going to feel like this is unsustainable and you're not getting joy out of it. So, what if you add to instead of take away?
Yeah. The add to method has been a lifesaver for me personally. Because you know what? There are some days, Holly, that I may or may not have had enough protein that day. And what do we know happens like clockwork? Rachel wants a Reese cup at 9 p.m., which I've had to settle for Oreos, such as last night. I had to settle for Oreos because that's the only thing that was in my house. Um, but again, like drinking a protein shake and then having my damn
Yeah.
Oreos, like add two. I added a protein shake to my 3
Yeah.
Oreos. And people are like, how did you eat only 3? Not even I
Not
know.
even I know. I wish I could be that person that's like, if I eat more than 3, I feel like crap. I don't. I don't. I just take the bag
No,
away
literally, I
and
can
I
eat the
put
whole
it
box. What do
away.
you
And
mean?
I like just have to stop thinking about it. Okay, sometimes I have to force myself to go to bed. Like I want another Oreo.
Right. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I am craving something and I'm like, I'm just going to go to sleep.
I'm gonna get sleep for dinner.
Right. So hungry. What should I do? I think I'm going to go to sleep. But don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Only experts or whatever
I
the
can't.
commercials say when like in the car commercials when they say like, the experts are driving the cars, like don't do this shit at home. That's literally us right now.
Right.
Don't do this.
Don't do
Don't
this at
take our
home.
advice
Don't
in
try
this.
this at home. Take your advice on everything else, but not
Yeah.
this. So, some examples. Do you have any examples, like specific examples to slower approaches?
Yeah. So like when I think of like the add not take away method, you know, number one, like your protein shake with your Oreos or um, adding one vegetable. If you're currently getting none, one is still better than 0, and you don't have to get to your full servings in, one day, you know? So adding one vegetable, adding one fruit, adding one home cooked meal a day, those sorts of things. Like just what feels too small to make a change is not too small. It's making a change. It's making a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to encourage again, like I'm really gonna try to nail this home because we are so impatient. I know it can be frustrating from a personal perspective. Like, I know it can be frustrating to have to wait to get to where you want to be. But honestly, it builds character. So just wait. um, it builds character. So just wait and do things the right way because you're going to be more satisfied if you put in all this hard work and you were disciplined for so long and you're feeling good along the way. Like you're not depleting
Hmm.
yourself of something that your body ultimately needs. So, let's go into my favorite part, the red flags. The red flags that we see in fad diets and unsustainable habits. Like if you see this anywhere in this new thing you're trying to try, run in the opposite direction as fast as you can, even if that's not very fast, like me. Okay?
Listen, me and CJ have been getting into running, and CJ is a 8-minute mile
Ooh,
pace kind of guy. I'm like
hate
12
him.
minutes.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm basically just jogging
No, but actually
the
same.
whole time. It's fine. So, yeah, there's no shame in going slow, okay?
I call it my jog journey.
That's a good one. I love
I call it
that.
my
I
jog
love
journey
that.
because I'm not running.
No.
Like running is me for my life, right? Running for my life. I'm not doing that. Um, I'm not doing that. It's a jog journey. And I just did, I don't know what it was. I posted it on social media. I want to say it was like an 11:30 mile, but disclaimer, I was carrying a conversation for that whole
That's
mile,
impressive.
which I feel like is a really big
Yeah.
accomplishment because most of the time I'm hyperventilating the whole time. So we're getting
Yeah.
there.
Hell yeah. We'll take that.
Um, we'll take it. So, yes, red flags that we see. What are some that you really cringe at personally?
Definitely ones similar to like 75 hard. Okay. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying 75 hard. What I mean by that is you get to day 30 and day 30, you forget to read 10 pages of your nonfiction book. Oh, you got to go all the way back and get all new 75 days. If you're not perfect every single second of every single day, then, it doesn't count. It's all for nothing. That is a huge red flag. And same goes for like, following a no carb diet. Like if it's asking you to be perfect for any amount of days, even 2 days in a row. Damn, I can't even be perfect 2 days in a row, Like, why would you expect that of yourself, perfection? 2 days in a row, 1 day in a row. It's just listen, we cannot be perfect. So anything that is requiring
We're
yeah,
human.
anything that requires perfection in order to be qualified as, like, staying on top of it or staying on track is a huge red flag to me. What would you say is one of yours?
I would say a red flag for me would be the extreme calorie restrictions, and I'll expand a bit. Um, Obviously, we know, if you don't know by now, let me fill you in on a secret that in order to lose weight, which again, we're talking about most people, that's their goal to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. Like that is a very black and white statement that I feel like we can be okay with because it's just science. Um, but people will go in calorie restrictions that are so extreme that they're left feeling very hungry, miserable. Like I feel like, and I feel like most women, hopefully not, like I would love if a lot of women didn't experience this, but I feel like most women have at some point in their lives restricted calories because they didn't really know all the things about how to lose weight. They just knew that you had to eat less. But they restricted their calories to the point where they're feeling hungry and miserable. And there is nothing more miserable than being hungry. Just
I
ask
was
my
about to say
husband.
that
He
same
feels miserable when
thing.
I'm hungry.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, like you your hunger hormones are talking to you for a reason and you need to listen to them. Now, how you respond to those hunger hormones is your choice, but you shouldn't ignore them. And I feel like when it comes to extreme calorie restrictions, your body's going to tell you, like, hey, like you're doing too much. Now, if you're in a very slight calorie restriction or calorie deficit, then and you're eating things that are very satisfying, which we've talked about again, go back to our nutrition episodes, protein and fiber, both very satiating, then you're not really going to feel that hunger, which is the goal. Like we want you to meet the goals that you have, but in a way that's not miserable,
Mhm.
because again, you can't sustain being miserable. I mean, if you can, then, well, this is not
Your
the place for
body
you.
cannot just because you mentally can persevere and whatever does not mean your body should persevere.
Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
And let's write that on a note and send it to everybody in America,
Seriously.
okay? Um, but yeah, and even, like I've been kind of intermittent with being in a calorie deficit because I don't want to be in a calorie deficit for too long. Um, but for example, like when I play volleyball, I know I have to eat more that
Mhm.
day, the day before and the day of, because if I don't, my body will tell me, hey, you need to go. Well, my body has a specific reaction when I don't eat enough. It's take your ass in the kitchen and get the endangered species dark chocolate bar that's filled with caramel and eat the whole bar
Yeah.
because you need calories. That's what my body does. It's very specific. I find it weird. Um, but yeah, extreme calorie restrictions, I think they're a no-go for me and they're miserable. So why would you want to do them anyway?
Right. And I think on that one for me would be like anything that forces you to eat things that you don't enjoy. I'm sorry, like we've talked about it before. We will enjoy our food. We can eat healthy and enjoy our food.
Right.
They can coexist and they
Exactly.
should coexist in order to be maintainable.
And
Yes.
will.
And then
Right.
I think one of the last things for me would just be like, if it's isolating you to where your kid's having a birthday party and again, you can't have a piece of cake, what message is that sending? If you feel like you're restricting yourself in really big moments for yourself or for people around you because of the diet you're on, I think it is worth questioning whether it's as beneficial as we think it is because food is fuel, but food is also a lot
Mhm.
more. It's also a way to, connect with people we love, talking about, "Oh my god, this cake is so delicious."
Mhm.
And, "I'm so happy we got to be here
Yeah.
to do da 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 da," whatever it is. Um, so anything, that you feel like you're gonna go to a social event and you need to pack your own food and you're not a bodybuilder, I think we need to just reconsider things a little bit.
Even if you are.
Yeah, that's
Even if you are, what are you
that's a whole
doing?
different thing.
Um, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And again, like I think people are missing the mark when it comes to, like, for example, like your cake example. They're missing the mark and thinking like this is going to ruin all of my progress. Like, let's be logical, okay? 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories, I believe. So, unless you're overeating by that much, you're not going to gain a pound. You're not going to gain a pound. And I also want us to think about how, like, losing a pound takes us maybe, like, again, if we're doing it with a small calorie restriction and not a massive one, it takes a week or less. So, like, have the damn piece of cake, you
Right.
know? It's not that serious,
Yeah.
honestly. Now, if you're having a piece of cake every day, that compounds, right? So it adds
Right.
up. But if we're having one-offs, like, I went to dinner with my mother-in-law and my husband yesterday, and you best believe I got that Brookie Sunday and enjoyed it.
And enjoyed it.
I love a good Brookie. So another red flag, I really want to like nail down a lot of these red flags because we see them so often. Um, the okay. This one's really gonna, this one really, really sends me. Um, is when you're promising someone that they're gonna lose belly fat, or when you get a promise of a certain amount of weight in X amount of days, or when you say that it targets fat loss. No, it doesn't. Literally, no, it doesn't. You cannot target fat loss. You can't. You can't say, I only want to lose weight in my stomach. You can't say, only want to lose weight in my legs. Like, you just can't. So, if it's promising you that, then they're full of it.
It being
Full
BS.
of it.
Yeah.
Right. It's BS.
That, and I think kind of on that note, 30 days, 75 days, 2 months, 60, whatever, X amount of days. Like, again, why are we limiting it to a certain amount of days? If it was sustainable, if it was practical for the long haul, we wouldn't have to put days to it. And some of these people will make the
Yeah.
argument of, well, by the end of it, it'll just be a habit. No, it's unsustainable beyond that amount of days.
Mm, right. The body doesn't optimally perform under those
Yeah.
conditions. So, no, it's not. Yeah. Um, man, the like when they talk about targeted belly fat loss, I'm like, please stop.
We've talked about starting with where you're at, assessing where you're at, and making changes from that and not from this ideal version of yourself. While it's important to, look where we want to be so that we can guide our actions today to fit later on, it's also important to look at where we're at, go from there, create something sustainable, realistic in the here and the now. And we've also talked about adding and not taking away, right? What are a few other pieces of advice that you would have for people that are looking to build a sustainable habit and see results?
Yeah. I think I mean, we talked already about flexibility a little bit, like, kind of incorporating flexibility again, because there are gonna be some outlier days that we have where maybe I'm traveling all day and I'm just not gonna have access to my meal prep and a microwave, like, that happens. Or maybe like, I know, me and my husband travel to Kentucky a lot where we don't really have we have a home base, but we don't really. So, like, there are situations where we have to be flexible on what we're eating. Um, so when that flexibility is needed, allow room for it, but then create a system that you're gonna, I guess, fall back on. So, for us, what that might look like is obviously we have a routine when we're at home. But if we're in a situation like when we're traveling, we know if we go to Lexington, we're really going to use Lean Feast, which is a meal prep company. It's tried and true by us. We know that you can get like a $7-10 lunch, and it has legit food that isn't packed full of a bunch of
Hmm.
crap. So, like, that's a fallback system that we go to. We also know that if we're traveling and maybe we don't have access to a meal prep place, we're going to go to the grocery store, and we know that the grocery store is going to have a rotisserie chicken. We know that the grocery store is going to have either like a salad in a bag or like some kind of veggie situation. And we know that we can get like microwavable rice. So, if we maybe have, like, a hotel room or a house that we're staying at, we know we can just take
Hmm.
that, which probably costs, like, $15 altogether. The chicken's already done. It's not doesn't have a bunch of crap on it, and the rice is a good carb, and then we got some veggies, and we're good to go. So, like, understand that flexibility is gonna be needed, and when that flexibility is needed, what system are you gonna kinda fall back on? What works for you? I mean, it might look different than what works for me in my household. Um, so that's kind of some advice I would hit
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, for sure. Just having that. again, anything that's requiring perfection is probably not ideal for anyone who doesn't live the perfect life. And I know my life day to day, I can plan the perfect day and it's still not going to go as planned, you know? Um, I do a lot of
Right.
traveling for work, and I have a plan A and I have a plan B and I have a plan C. And I've thought through them all and I kind of know fallback plans. Just again, having that flexibility can be really important in having something that is sustainable for the long haul for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And you know what? At the end of the day, if it's a day that it just kind of has went to garbage and you've just not really hit any mark that you've needed, give yourself grace, like that's okay. Let's focus on tomorrow.
absolutely.
Because like those days happen for me and I know I'd say a pretty decent amount of all the things that need to happen and need to go in order for me to reach my goals. But some days are just going to be what they are,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah,
So,
for sure. But you didn't get there in one day. You're not going to be taken back from one day. It's just about getting
right.
back in the saddle. I think that's a saying.
Not the saddle, not the cowboy.
You know us here in Kentucky, all about our horsies. As we close out, I think the most important
Mhm.
things that we want you guys to take away from today is that anything that is requiring your absolute best 24/7 is maybe not practical. Ask yourself some questions. Does this feel good? Is this sustainable in 6 months, in a year? You know, where do I want this to take me? Different questions that, you need to do some reflection. We've given you guys some prompts. Go from there. Some red flags to look for in things that you might see online when, you're looking at ways to lose weight. Some red flags that you can look out for, and then actual action steps that you can take that are realistic. And, as always, our DMs are open. We're happy to, be a helping hand in any way that we can. Um, but sometimes you just got to trial and error it for yourself and go from there.
For sure. And two, I'll leave you guys with the thought that sometimes the boring approaches often work the best long term. They're not always glitz and glam, um, but there's something that you can do forever long term and that are gonna really, kind of turn around some of your bad habits into better habits. So
And on that note, we'll see y'all in the next episode, and have a
that's right.
fantastic day, a fantastic week. We'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Cut the BS with Holly and Rachel. If today gave you a dose of clarity, confidence, or even just a good laugh, we've done our job.
Don't forget, wellness isn't about doing more, it's about doing what actually works for you. So take what hit home, leave the rest, and keep showing up as your strongest, realest self.
Be sure to follow, rate, and share this episode with someone who's ready to cut the BS and live with more intention. Until next time.